efforts to redefine the race, this will come down to a very simple question. Do you want to keep Harry Reid as the Senate Majority Leader?
No.
Do you want to keep a firm vote for Obama and Obamacare?
No.
I was reminding Todd earlier, one of the virtues of being a history teacher, that his race really reminds me of Harry Truman in 1940, running for the Senate. Truman had 6 years in the Senate, and the machine, both in St. Louis and Kansas City, decided they wanted to beat Truman, told him they ought to retire. The race was over. He had no money. And Truman took one car and one driver and crisscrossed the state of Missouri and said, you have a choice. You can vote for a grassroots senator who represents you, or you can let the machines run Missouri. He won that race. 4 years later, Franklin Delano Roosevelt picked him to be vice president. And in 1948, he was so far behind that Gallup quit taking surveys in September. And that's why you have the famous picture of the Chicago Tribune saying Dewey wins, with Truman holding it up. Because that was the second time in his career he'd run an underdog campaign of telling the truth and fighting. I think Todd Aiken, in the next few weeks, is going to remind every person in Missouri that this boils down to two very simple choices. Do you want a liberal who votes with Obama, who has proven consistently for 6 years that she is far to the left of the people of Missouri? Or do you want a grassroots conservative who wants to get the economy growing, balance the budget, pay down the debt, shrink power in Washington and return power to Missouri? It's that clear choice. And I think it's very important that Republicans across this country understand that Todd Aiken is a key to our winning control of the Senate. And that every Republican has asked himself the question, do you really want Harry Reid back as the majority leader? Or do you want to work to elect Todd Aiken and help us win control? So I think this is a very important Senate race. I do want to take 1 minute before we take questions. And I want to talk about one other item. I have not asked Todd about this, so I'm just speaking for me as a person. I was appalled and offended this morning to read the President's comments from 60 Minutes. That we had had a few bumps in the road. That's his word. Bumps in the road. In the Middle East. The killing of a United States ambassador and 3 other Americans is not a bump in the road, Mr. President. And I think we need to have a president who understands that we are under siege from radical forces. This administration has lied to the American people for over a week. They have refused to tell the truth about Benghazi. They have refused to be open about what happened there. This was a deliberate killing by a deliberate hit team of over 100 people who arrived in 2 waves. It is exactly the opposite of what the United Nations ambassador of the United States, Ambassador Rice, said. Both the ambassador and the White House spokesperson explicitly misled the American people a week ago on Sunday and told us things that were just plain not true. The President, as recently as 2 days ago, was still saying things that are false. Nothing in Benghazi related to some stupid movie. Benghazi was part of our war with radical extremists, and it is amazing to me that not only can this President not bring himself to deal with reality about radical Islamists who seek to destroy our civilization, but he can't even have the dignity to recognize that the killing of 4 Americans, one of whom is an ambassador, is not a bump in the road. It is an American tragedy. Yes. And we should all be offended by this callousness and lack of seriousness on the part of President Obama.
Amen.
We're going to take a few questions.
Mr. Speaker, what do you think are the odds that the other Republican leaders at the national level will be joining you after Tuesday?
I believe by mid-October, all of them will be in. I mean, how do you go back to all the supporters of the Senate committee and say, you know, we have a real chance to defeat a Democrat in Missouri? In the last 3 polls, to the best of my knowledge, there's no poll that shows this race is impossible. In 2 of the last 3 polls, Todd Aiken is ahead. I suspect in the very near future there will be an avalanche of money from McCaskill, and it will briefly look rocky. But the underlying reality is the people of Missouri, in every survey taken in the last 2 years, have said they do not want